All right. How we doing, guys? Apparently that's how I have to start the show. So
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Are you? All right. Well, faith in the struggle is usually about, some kind of intense thing in your life. But
Yep.
I figured your guys' whole lives have been struggle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Nathan and Grace, my two children. Well, Mom and I. She can get some blame for all of this. Figured to have you on. Not everyone understands, regardless of whether it's a good church or a good experience, which we can talk about. But regardless, there's uniqueness in the challenge of growing up, being children of the pastor. Most of your childhood, I mean, we've grown. We're not exactly a mega church, but we have staff and everything. But most of your childhood, it was pretty much just me. Lauren came on pretty early. You probably don't really remember when Lauren wasn't there. So that's kind of the story. You both wouldn't have known anything, but Grace was, when you were born, I was already here. Nathan was like a little over a year before.
Yeah.
So I doubt you have much memory.
No, not really. Not really.
So that's been your whole life. This church, you going to church, and me being the pastor, having to listen to me preach every single Sunday, and all that. So what I actually did is threw on Facebook, actually, and didn't think I'd get much of a response, but I got a lot of people saying questions.
A lot of people want to know
Yeah.
things about us.
Yeah. Like after your dad got finished preaching, did he go home and beat you senseless?
Oh. No.
Not yet.
Not yet. There's still time.
Yeah,
There's
that's
still
true.
time. No, nobody actually asked that. But so I figured I'd kind of let them drive some of the questions, and I'll chip in and, see where we go.
Right.
My favorite one, which might be the hardest for you to answer,
Okay.
maybe not. I don't know. Pat Drum, actually, I'm not going to give everyone's name, but I'll give Pat credit because he's the one who asked this. But he's wanted to know if you remember like a most embarrassing sermon illustration you were either a part of or mentioned.
Oh, man.
Probably should have prepared you for that
I
one
know.
because you kind of have to rack your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like not a lot of stories about me get told. I mean, so like embarrassing for me necessarily, honestly, no. I'm also not someone that gets embarrassed by like dumb stories like that a lot. Like I don't really mind. I'd say the ones where I get the most like kind of like red face or like feel like people are looking at me is like more whether it be stories about yourself or just like our family as a
Yeah.
whole, like just like thinking about like
On vacation,
Yeah.
something, and you're just
or
like,
even like your sleepwalking stories, like
Yeah.
that. Those are like because people like will bring it up afterwards, and not that I mind or anything like that, but it will be like
it's
not everyone has hundreds of people that know their parents in the ins and outs of their life. So that sometimes will be, but I don't really mind the illustrations that much. I feel like Mom would probably have a better answer for that because I think she gets
yeah,
a little bit more of the brunt of that.
yeah.
But
She probably
I don't know,
does.
maybe
I
Grace
would
does
agree
a
with
better.
that.
I mean, I have a terrible memory, so I can't really remember things that were about me. I think probably there were some that, like, I'm like the most forgetful person in the world, so probably I lost something or did something, and I was like, bro, like, do we have to bring this up at church? Because now I look like stupid, but but I don't really remember a specific time. But yeah, like just generally, my favorite thing though is when you're telling a story and not that you're twisting it at all, but like you're saying it for the church, and then I know like the backstory of what actually happened, and I'm like, okay, yeah. I know a lot more about.
Hey, imagine if Mom was up there. It'd be so
Oh well,
over dramatization
yeah.
of everything.
There'd be a lot of details that didn't need to be there, and
Yeah, you're not lying, but you got to give it a little.
you got to give it a little like,
Yeah.
And I'm
a
like,
little extra
well,
drama, a little extra
let
comedy.
me tell you the extra stuff that happened.
I had a Facebook memory that came up. I think it was a Facebook memory of when I had both of you up there in my my shoes, but you were both pretty young.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah,
I
you
still
used
had a suit on, the whole thing.
Yeah, we used to go up a lot.
yeah, we used to go up a lot more, and I hated doing that because I just was like,
There's other new generation of
yeah,
younger
like
kids.
there's a lot more kids. Like there used to be like no kids. It was like me, like everyone my age, like Catherine
Yeah.
and whatever, and
Hannah.
then like us.
I
Yeah.
also did a lot more
Bringing people up.
bringing people up because with doing it 3 times is like kind of a pain.
Yeah.
Feel like, all right, who am I gonna? She's kind of
Yeah.
the right kind of person, a kid who's not. Occasionally I just did it recently, but I used to do it a lot more.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I don't feel like dealing with that, so let's think of a different illustration.
Well, you have your key illustrations now that everyone knows. So
Peeing in the fan.
back then,
Oh, no.
that,
What did I say? The pee?
no,
key.
no, I said
key.
key illustrations that
Like,
you use.
Yeah, like the ones that are
Box of
repetitive.
problems, bag of guilt,
I'm just getting lazy. I don't want to come up
Yeah.
with new ones.
Well, it's probably
bringing out the throne again. Here
Yeah.
we go.
People remember it better.
That's what I've learned over the years. It's not like you have to keep reinventing the wheel because most people need to be told something like 50 times.
Yeah.
And then they might remember it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I try. I think I made a concerted effort to like, I can't, I'm not going to just like air the dirty laundry.
Right. Yeah.
It's like try not to like say anything too, but I mean, I think sometimes you accidentally do, or just you don't realize what might embarrass a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite elder?
Favorite elder? That's
tough.
Crazy. Now or back then?
Yeah.
No,
Now?
You're going to have to remember. Who's an elder right now? You're going to have to remember.
Brian Hava.
Brian
That's
Hava,
a good
Mike,
scout.
Sorry, Mike.
Mike Bundy, Tom Dion,
Sorry, Mike.
Darren. Those are the ones you know the best, probably, right?
It's
Probably don't know
Brian.
it.
He was my youth group.
Yeah.
And Greg, you had Greg
Group
for,
leader.
for a
Right.
coach forever.
I mean, Greg was my coach for soccer and basketball for a while, so he's probably the one I've had the most,
Yeah,
has spoken the most into my life. But Brian was also my youth leader, and I mean, Mike, was in my life probably as much as anybody for the first few years, especially. So,
yeah.
so yeah, any of those three would probably be. But honestly, everybody that's been on the elder board has, in some way, I feel like impacted us.
Darren.
And yeah, I mean, Darren's always been there.
With his great jokes
He's always been there.
when he's not traveling.
But
Yeah, no, they're all good guys, right?
Yes.
But Hava makes the wow.
Well,
Well,
I fought
youth group, and that
tooth
takes
and
a-
nail to get that man to be my. When they tried to make it all girls, I was like, well, if we do all girls, I don't get to have Brian as my leader. And so I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. So more of a general from Miss Nita. She had asked this. Just general, what's it like, good or bad, growing up as a pastor's kid?
well, whenever people ask me that, which I've been asked before, my first thing I say usually is, well, I don't know what it's like to be anything else. So it's hard to compare it because I don't know. But I will say, I think, and whether it be because of the church, because of what you've done, our family as a whole, all sorts of factors have, I think some of the negative things that people like you hear about being a pastor's kid, we've been able to stay away from. I never felt like growing up that you guys were stricter than than you should have been. Like, I never felt like things were unfair. I never felt like I was held to a standard that was exceedingly higher than like the average Christian household.
Yeah.
You gave us grace, and whereas I think you do hear things, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it goes.
You hear things like going on in the church.
Right. And that pressure of you're a pastor's kid, you got to shape up. That was never verbiage that you guys used.
Yeah.
You never were shaming us for
Right.
oh, you're a you got to be better than that. It was just you got to be better than that because we raised you better. So,
Yeah.
um,
That was just your mom.
yeah. Well, for the most part, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think I would say I like it.
For their benefits to it.
Definitely. I mean, I've always had from a biblical perspective, my like just knowledge and being trained up in that, I think we just had a better access because we had you around. That
Church was open, you were
yeah,
there.
the church was open. We're always there. We're at every event.
Mm.
But there's other kids that had that. But we also had at home like a legitimate person constantly reading into the Bible and speaking into us and being legitimately trained like professionally to teach people about the Bible and about like further people's relationship with God. So we had that at all times. And so I do think we generally have a better foundation than a lot of kids get access to.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say a lot of the same. I would say, again, yeah, I don't know what it's like to not be, but from my experience with people like asking me how it is, I think that a lot of people view the pastor as like someone that is not a human being. And like they're like, I'll tell them stories about you, and they're like, well, like just like that you're chill and you're like funny, and people are like, oh. And I'm like, pastors aren't like one dimensional, like they sleep at the church, like right. I don't know, like I feel like people are always shocked when I'm like my dad is a normal person.
People in the church are like friends who maybe just kind
friends that are outside of our church for the most part,
because they don't
I
think most people in the church, I mean, I don't think I'm
know who you are, but like
maybe just a little more off the hook at home than maybe some people say.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Times it by 10.
Yeah, and I think people, don't like think about being a pastor's kid as it actually is. Like it's not,
Well, I've always seen, when I've seen other pastors and their kids and seen how they just, the results, right? It feels like, I know this isn't always the case, right? It feels like they're complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Like one is either become pastors or in ministry or just really, really strong believers themselves, not necessarily in ministry. And then the other is like completely hate it all.
Yeah.
And I always looked at it and said, I think it's the two biggest factors that hurt kids are if their father is not, if it's not genuine. It doesn't mean we don't all have a little hypocrisy in us, but if you like come home and you're like, really, you're telling everyone that this is who you are, and also, and sometimes a combination of both, if the church does that, the exact opposite of what you guys said this church did for you is like holding you to an impossible standard and thinking they can be your parents, and or just being hypocritical. So when they attack the pastor, you see them attack your dad, and you're just like, this is supposed to be what being a Christian is. And so they run the other way. And I always try to be mindful of that. It's like, you're not, but it wasn't hard because we had our troubles as a church, but most of the attacks came when you guys were either not alive yet or very young. And I wasn't the lead pastor, so I didn't endure a lot of that.
Yeah.
What else? What was something like where you're like, I wish I wasn't the pastor's kid?
The only thing that I experienced that it doesn't necessarily bother me, but it's something that I think extra that is on my mind and that I don't think a lot of people probably think about or experience is, you're not famous, but being a pastor is kind of a weird. You're in a weird
you're
category
like
where
famous.
You're not a celebrity, but more people know who you are and are interested in your life and invested in your life than a normal person. And so because of that, and also I go pretty consistently to the Saturday service. And so I don't see a ton of people in the church like outside of that or youth group or whatever. We're a pretty big sized church now, so you can't know everybody. But all those people do know who you are. And most of those people also therefore know who I am. And so,
and you work at CBS,
right? I work across the street, so that doesn't help. But pretty frequently, people will come up to me and start talking to me, and they know who I am, and I actually don't know who they are. And if you're one of those people and you're listening right now, that is totally okay. Don't totally say hi. That's totally fine. It is just like kind of reminder, like, well, I do gotta like there is a little bit of that pressure. Like, okay, I don't feel like
they'll
people
judge
are
you.
constantly looking down, like recording me and gonna like post me online and cancel us or something. I'm also don't think I'm doing anything to earn that, but there is a little bit of like, well, I do got to kind of realize that I'm representing our family and the pastor, maybe even the people who are in our church, and I might not even know. Even like checking people out at CVS, things like that. So that is definitely always in the back of my mind. That, especially in like the Uxbridge, Northbridge area, anybody I see or interact with could potentially know who I am, and I don't know them, and that is a little weird. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
It is definitely weird. I think, yeah. I go on Sundays a lot, so I have a lot of people that come up to me, and I'm like, oh, I swear I know your face, but I do not know your name. and I'm
Also bad
the
with
worst
names,
at remembering names.
too.
Like, I cannot, for the life of me, remember people's names. So I'm like halfway through a conversation, I'm like, okay, what do
After-
you know about me?
After
What?
this, people are going to be like, "What's my name?"
I know.
Even
And
if
I'm not
I've known
gonna
you for
know, probably,
decades,
and I'm
I
sorry.
may not remember.
I know, and I'm sorry, but yeah, I feel like, yeah, a lot of times it's kind of like, oh, they like know where I work. They're like, how's West End Creamery? And I'm
Right.
like, oh, yeah. I do not know who you are, but, or how's Liberty? And I'm
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, well, like a lot of things get like told in sermons that I'm like, oh, right, that's public
Especially
information.
because you've been gone. so-
Yeah, especially because I've been
Also,
gone.
I
and
am
I'm back.
online. I don't post a ton of personal stuff, but stuff
Yeah,
like that.
and it's not like terrible, but it's definitely like sometimes a little stressful. But
Right.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's kind of weird is like outside. This is outside the church, but being a pastor's kid has some kind of like reputation, kind
Yeah.
of. Like I've been told like, oh, you're a pastor's kid. Like they didn't know until like, I don't know, a little bit into knowing me, and then they're like, oh. And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, because my whole life I grew up in the church and it was fine and everything was fine.
You talking more at Liberty?
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
'cause
like
other Christian cultures and around the country, because it draws students from all over, especially down south. It's a very different thing.
yeah.
You can talk to Christian about that. 'Cause he came from Tennessee.
Yeah, well, and I've been to those southern churches, and I'm like, whoa, I cannot be the kid of this pastor. Like, I'm like, they're like, if I think I'm celebrity here, like,
Yeah.
they're like
Yeah.
an actual celebrity. So, yeah, sometimes it's like, yeah, there's like a connotation that comes with it, like, oh, you either must be crazy or you're like super,
Right.
like, strictly against, like, can't talk about anything in front of you because
Right.
you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a little bit of that, like people assuming, I don't know, some sort of moral superiority that comes from me. And that's been my whole life. Like I do remember that, like, when I was like a kid, I had a baseball coach and he would be like, you got the power of Jesus on your side,
Yeah,
Nate.
yeah,
Like he would say, and like, it is like, oh gosh, like that's just
Now I can't strike out.
right. And like, I don't know, just it is like, well, I'm no different than anybody else, and probably worse than a lot of kids that have never been to church. I wasn't perfect by any means. Still am far from it. So, like, there is a little bit of that. Like, I mean, I'm not a pastor. Like, I haven't.
Yeah, but it's funny because I never really thought about that from your standpoint, because I deal with that. Like there's times, and it's not because I'm ashamed of being a pastor, but there's times where like I don't, and I'm not talking about in the church, obviously, but like when I'm at the store or something, it's like I just want to be a regular person. Because of that too, it's like, especially where we are. If you were down south, when we went to Virginia to visit Grace, I had my email, so people would, and they were checking, and this woman checking us out at the car rental place was like, "Oh, you're a pastor," and my first thought was, "Oh, she's gonna think she's not gonna like me," and then it's like you're immediately treated differently, and I'm like, "Oh
One way or
man,
Yeah.
up north, that ain't how it works." Or they're like standoffish and they think you're going to judge me or something like that.
I mean, I've had coworkers that would like people. The language is obviously foul in those places, but like people would like apologize to me, and I think I've heard mom say this too, like go out, and I'm like, don't apologize to me if you feel convicted. apologize to God. I don't, you're not doing anything to me. Yeah, that, like, there is some of that, but most of that's just funny, to be honest. And you get used to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we went to Christian schools, so I mean, I had like 2 other pastor kids in my grade, and so there was a little bit of less of that stigma around us because everyone, or most of the kids, at least, were somewhat associated with a church. But since leaving high school, and I think more of that I've seen, like, oh yeah, it's not, people don't meet pastors' kids very frequently, so
Right.
it's a little different for people.
Yeah. 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 What's your earliest memory of our church that you can kind of like, or one of the earliest, you don't have to, but something you remember like early on?
I mean, I don't know how early this was, but I just remember being a kid at the church and like I don't think I realized like that like the church was like the church. It was kind of like we like lived here during the summer. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can just run around and it's fine." Like I don't know. And I was kind of under the impression that like we like owned the church as a kid.
This is
You
my
know,
house.
as a kid, like you just don't really it's like, oh, my dad's a pastor, that means we own this place. Like, okay. Like, no, that's not how it works. But I do remember like Sunday mornings, like I had so many like little friends. I feel like we had like a band of like little girls that would run around the church. And I remember like one time mom and Mrs. Violet, Catherine's mom, made a rule that we weren't allowed to leave the fellowship hall. Now the Commons for all you new people. It used to be the fellowship hall. We weren't allowed to leave there, and I was so mad because all my other friends got to like run into the worship center or the sanctuary and like did laps and would be
Still do, man.
yeah, oh yeah, the
It's a
laps.
crack. I tell
Yep.
parents all the time.
Yeah.
This is
hopping from
you
pew
think
to
your kids
pew.
are. They
I remember Noah Masadi had to go to the ER, and that was what Mrs. Bundy put in the no
Jumping
running
from
rule.
the stage. Like if you could jump from the ground to the stage, like you were the coolest person in church. Like
Yeah,
that was always like
and
the
you had
status
Quinn
symbol.
Hicks, later on.
Yeah. So I just remember being an absolute wild like
Because it was like home, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
What about you? You remember
I mean,
anything?
I remember, I have like flashes of like really early memories. Like I do remember like flashes of Pastor Kurt. I remember like bits and pieces of you actually, I think, being the associate pastor. But obviously, I mean, I was before even like really having a brain, so I don't remember much. But I like some of the earliest memories are like similar to Grace. Like with friends, like elders meetings with the Masadi boys, hanging out, things like that, being at the church all the time.
But there's no teenager in youth group that can hide where you're not going to find them.
Right. No, I know. That's a good point. And during when I was in youth group, I was the best at like manhunt, things like that, because we truly did.
Secret.
Honestly, less now that they've rearranged everything. I'm
Yeah.
still, but
Yeah, they blocked
back
everything
when
off.
I had every square inch down. So things like that are.
Someone did
classic
ask if you're
memories.
playing hide and seek. What spot are you picking?
So, the best place to hide, honestly, is the closet in what's now the youth group room.
yeah.
I think
yeah.
they
It used
used
to
to
be
keep,
like
like,
the
the co-op
Deltic.
stuff.
Yeah, it used to be
in
like
there,
the Deltic.
and
closet.
I think people like just kind of like almost honestly just forget it's a door, and
Yeah.
so I don't think I've ever been found in there, or the closet downstairs in like the main, in like the basement, in the main like where the kids hang out, that little closet. People, you can like hide next to the door, so if they open the door, they still
Yeah.
can't see you. So any kids looking for hiding spots, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. Grace, what advice would you give someone who is like going into ministry, just having kids, even someone like Pastor Josh who has younger kids, he's gonna, or someone who's thinking about it, any advice of what to do or not to do?
I mean, I would say it's hard to like honestly don't be afraid to like make this church your like community, like it's not a bad thing, you know, to have your kids be at the church and like among all the people. I think that was like a really good thing for my childhood. I was always surrounded by people that I knew loved me. Like get your kid to like know the people in the church like well.
Don't be separate.
Yeah, don't be like, oh, like my kid doesn't need to know these people. Like I remember like the Dions, like we used to spend like every day at their house. And I feel like it's the people like that in our church that were just like our
I would
family.
run on the treadmill and then you
Yeah, we would be like,
But they even
we want to
didn't let you go in the pool.
They
So.
definitely babysitted us too. Like,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
People like that.
Yeah, like it is truly a community. And like if you're not, like obviously you work here, you're very invested, but your kids may not be, and just making sure they're in all the programs and that they're getting the same treatment as the other kids too, like not just like oh, like they're doing the programs but like, oh, they're the pastor's kids, so we're gonna overlook them. Sometimes I feel like I wished I could have the experience of like going to VBS as a kid that like wasn't the pastor's kid.
Yeah.
I just felt like I knew everything that was going on and like all the problems with VBS, and I was like, I just wish I could just go and have fun and not, I don't know, maybe I was just a
Not
stressed
set up
out
and
kid.
take down and-
Yeah, I loved setting up. I think VBS setup was like my favorite memory as a kid because we would just like run around and they'd be making these huge like dragons
Yeah, no
breathing
one else was
fire, and I was
doing
like, this is awesome. I was like, this is like Disney World. But
I was
yeah,
trying to
having
come
to
up with
clean
dances.
up. Yeah. I feel like it was always like there was something I had to be doing that wasn't like the other kids. So, I mean, that's not really advice, I guess, but
No, that is very much, because I think sometimes the temptation is to try to protect your kids or to think your kids don't need it if you're a little, in my opinion, arrogant. Because I'm the pastor, I know better. And it's like, there might be some biblical, theological things that I know better, but surrounding you with people like Brian and youth group or,
Yeah.
you know, Lauren, Mrs. Bundy, and the rest of the children's workers. And, you know, even the ones that weren't the greatest, they loved you and they poured into you. And you can't replace that.
also because I think that kids are more likely to not like, because like I feel like if you were trying to tell me something from like the Bible or theological concept, I felt like not
It's your dad, not.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's my dad like lecturing me, instead of like it's somebody else at the church that I'm like, ooh, I want to listen to them because they're different and they're cool. And like I feel like I definitely connected with a lot of people that were in the church that like, because I know mom used to teach like everything, and I remember sometimes I'd be like, I just wish somebody else would be teaching.
Well, we were.
Why does my mom teach Awana and youth group and everything? And now she does none of that.
We
She
were
does
small.
children's church, but
We were small.
Yeah.
We only had a few people who could do it.
and she was great at it. But I was like, oh, it's my mom, you know, instead of like,
You're my dad on Sunday morning and my
yeah,
mom
my
on
mom
Wednesday
at
night.
Awana and my mom at youth group. Like, it was just like when somebody else would like talk, I'd be like, ooh, I'm listening, like a little bit more. So yeah, like definitely letting other people's like opinions and like not, you know, bad people, obviously people that are negative, but the church community is important. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's the problem. Some church communities are difficult and
negative.
toxic.
Yeah.
And exposing your children to that is actually bad for them.
Yeah.
So
But
praise
this
God.
church is good.
This church has always been, even people that have disagreed with me or decisions that I or our elders have made have loved you and have never let that that I've seen get in the way of you know, saying, well, that means I'm going to be mean
to a kid.
Yeah, because it was never really super personal. Even if it could get a little personal, it was never super personal with me. Anything from you if you were to give advice?
I mean, I think a big thing is it's important to have a life outside of the church.
Yeah.
I think I think you've done a good job, and we as a family, where like the church is a big part of our life. Like that will never change, and we dedicate a lot of time to it. And there is obviously, depending on what's going on, varying levels of stress that you and the rest of us carry from that. But I don't feel like when you come home from work, I don't see you as a pastor. I just see you as my dad. And I think that relationship is important. You have to, like, when I walk upstairs, the first thing I'm not thinking is like, oh, I wonder like what's going. It's like, oh, did you see the Pacers game? Like that's like things like that, and connect with your kids in those ways. So you're more than a pastor to them. You don't want to just be a pastor to your kids because you are their, no matter what level of ministry, that's who your kids are. And so, yeah, I think a huge part of our child is like vacations, things like that. I didn't feel like we were always just stuck, always worrying and thinking about the church. And I think the church as a whole has done a great job of allowing that because like things like your sabbaticals, and if we didn't have that, it might not work so well. And if we didn't have the great staff we have now and the elders and all that stuff, it just wouldn't work. So that's been super helpful to allow you to let your mind go other places without worrying too much about what's going on. And that's allowed us to, we are pastors' kids, but we're also just your kids. And that is, that distinction's super important.
To go kind of with that answer, somebody, Josh, asked if you, and it's perfectly fine to be honest because these things happen, but if you ever feel like there was a time or a season where I prioritized the ministry or the church over you guys.
I think it's always gonna change and vary. I think there's times when you're obviously distracted and obviously maybe even not in a great place mentally, but I never felt like you were unavailable. I never felt like you get grumpy, and that's so like there is some stuff like that. Like the church definitely affects our lives for sure, and sometimes in a negative way, I would say. But
I guess that's the case wherever I would work.
I think
right?
that's every job,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. And that's every person. You're never going to be just always perfect. So yeah, I've never thought like, I wish he would just stop being a pastor. Like that's never, or like I wish we didn't have to deal with this. That's, but I have thought
Or like I wasn't available. You
right,
didn't
like
feel
before the sabbatical, or even like just at various times things are stressful.
Yeah.
It does feel like your mind is definitely still at work. But I've experienced that. Like I think even mom has experienced that. I think even I work at CVS and that even happens to me. So it just is. That is what it is.
What about you, Grace? Did you feel it?
Pastor related.
Ever feel that way?
I think that it wasn't necessarily like, no, I don't think it was like ever a time where I felt you were necessarily prioritizing the church before us. I think that there's been, like especially recently, good ways for you to like rest from the church and get away
It was
from.
probably harder back when I didn't.
Yeah. And I was younger, so I don't know. I don't really notice, but I think the biggest thing that comes with a pastor's family is there's a lot more, at least I feel like we've experienced a lot more like spiritual warfare and like just like stuff that I feel like Satan does just to hurt our family, like because of, maybe it's not because you're a pastor, but I just feel like some seasons have been like the church is getting like Satan is trying to do stuff. It's not, he's never successful. And like I feel like there's seasons of toughness and there's seasons of like, wow, like I feel like Satan is really attacking, but then like, you know, through prayer and through like just being honest and open with people in our church and just like being honest about where we are at, like not hiding that we're like people that are going through stuff. I think that like and with all the people in our church's prayer, like we get through those seasons and the Lord, you know, brings us through those seasons. But yeah, I do feel like sometimes there is a bit of an attack on being a pastor's kid, like on our family sometimes.
Definitely. I think, you know, I was thinking about the question of prioritizing ministry. I think one of the looking back, I don't know if I would have always said this because it was not always easy, but because mom had a job, she's a nurse, which was great. The nurse is a great career that she was able to be home a lot. But for a lot of your life, like I'm dropping you off at school, and it was also more convenient for me to do that, and picking you up, and making dinner, which you hated and didn't tell me. At least one specific shake and bake. It was a go-to, and
rice pilaf.
Grace hated the shake and bake and rice pilaf.
Yeah.
And the rides to karate and all that.
And the Pontiac with talk radio, Felger and Maz. Felt
Right.
nauseous.
Right. But regardless, I never felt like mom was your parent and I just like showed up. And it wasn't necessarily because I was so intentional and great. It was just the way our life had to be, because we needed both incomes, and mom had a career. It was an important career. She's a nurse, and it's important. So it was like we shared a lot of it.
And it was honestly in some ways reverse. I mean, through periods of time, especially like when mom was working nights. Like I remember like hoping she would get canceled, things like that, because mom, I mean, she was home, but not necessarily a ton when we were awake.
Sleep, yeah.
Or yeah. So honestly, for a good portion of our childhood, you were the one that was always around.
Yeah.
Which
because I was so close.
abnormal, I
Yeah,
think.
because even when working,
Yeah.
like
And you were more
made a lot more sense
flexible.
for me to. Yeah, and if you were sick, I picked you up because I was 1 mile away. Mom
Yeah.
was if mom was working, obviously. But did you ever feel tempted to rebel and turn away from the faith because of being a pastor's kid?
No, I've always like, I mean, I've done rebellious stuff, but I've never done any rebellious stuff to be rebellious. Like I've never been like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
I've always just made dumb decisions, or
It wasn't really a Christian faith. It was more just doing
dumb stuff. Not necessarily like I never felt I'm gonna leave the faith. Just don't like this one specific rule and I'm gonna bend it a little bit. That stuff like that I've done my whole life, but it was never out of like I never wanted you guys to catch me. Like I never wanted to get
trouble. No.
in trouble, or I still do hate getting in trouble. So yeah, no, I don't have a rebellious bone in my body, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. I have extreme guilt about doing bad things.
me too.
So I can't really do bad things without feeling extremely guilty. But
But how about your Christian faith?
I would say the biggest thing was I felt like my life was on, like I felt like this was probably about more than a year ago or so. I was on track, to finish high school at WCS, which was a Christian school, and I had been there since kindergarten, and Christian school my whole life, and then I'm looking at colleges, and like you guys are begging me to look at Liberty, and I'm like, I can't. I felt like I was on a roller coaster track and I couldn't get off. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to another Christian school, and is it going to be exactly the same? Because as much as I like loved a lot of my experience at my like
was
Christian
very
high
small.
school, it was really small, and a lot of the things did anger me about like sometimes I would feel like this is not the Christian environment that I thought it was going to be, especially in high school. But I did make a lot of great Christian friends there and a lot of great memories there. But I was like, am I going to do this again? Like, I was like, okay. And then I was like, wait, like, no, like, I can't do this. And I was telling mom, I was like, I'm never going to Liberty. Like, you cannot convince me to go there. Like, I remember specifically being at Auntie Kim's. Like, I don't know why we got into this conversation, but she brought it up. And I was like, Mom, like, no, like, we're not talking about this. I'm not going there.
It
Like,
doesn't go over well.
no. And she tries to convince you. And I'm like, why are we doing this at a family party? Like, just leave it alone. Like, I don't want to go. I want to do my own thing. Like, just like, let me do my own thing. But this is the great thing about mom is she does not let you say no when she knows it's the right thing for you. And I feel like
Which works for you,
somehow,
not for him.
yeah, somehow mom always,
I just keep saying no.
somehow mom always is right. And she always knows what I actually need to do. But I always still try to push back sometimes. I think I've given up a little bit, but because I realize that she's right most of the time. But yeah, then I obviously ended up choosing Liberty. I went there with the mindset that I was like, I'm still not going here. And then it was wonderful. It was huge. And everyone there was extremely like just a whole like 180 from my small Christian school. Like it was just like, I don't know, it's just everyone loved Jesus so much. And I was like, this is the kind of Christian environment that I've been searching for my whole life. So I think, and then I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go. I don't want to give up my like pride, but I did. And yeah, it was the best decision I've made. I would not want to go anywhere else because of all the rebellious things that people do in college that I do not want to partake in. Because I don't like to rebel, because I get guilty and I don't like doing things that are
I sometimes wonder if
wrong.
we'd had a third kid.
Maybe they'd be the crazy one.
They'd be like me. Actually, Uncle Dan was rebellious, so. Because you guys were never. I always said, and sometimes I unintentionally became very judgy, not verbally, because I was a pastor. I'm always very careful about telling parents how to raise their kids. They don't want to hear it usually if they ask for advice. But I would be like, come on, man. Like, your kid shouldn't be acting that way. But it's like, it was so unfair because you guys just didn't. And it wasn't until, not bad stuff, but more your struggles, anxiety struggles and mental health struggles, that I was like, oh, like, we're really not the perfect parents. Not that I thought I was perfect, but I was like, my way is the right way. And now I tell parents all the time, like, there's just different seasons and your kids will thrive in some and hurt in others. And there's really not much you can do about it. Would be there.
Yeah.
You know? What's the best thing we did? You may have maybe already answered this, but maybe there's something else did to help you keep like in church and in love with Jesus.
Just think being that example, like, I think that it's extremely important that, like, obviously, since you were the pastor and mom's a pastor's wife, like, you both went to church, you preached every weekend. And I think, like, that's something that not every kid has, like, the example of. Like, maybe their mom brings them to church, but their dad stays home, or they're in some kind of other family situation where not everyone's a believer, or their parents are believers but kind of act one way at church and act one way at home. Yeah. And I don't think that was our experience. Like, I really thought that you guys were very authentic with everyone. Mom, obviously, she can't fake anything. She's just 100% her, and you either take it or leave it, which is how I am kind of now. I think I'm turning into my mother. But she was like just 100% authentic, and everyone loved her, and and everyone loved you. And I think that was like, just like, you guys were actually like my prime examples. Everyone always told me how lucky I was to have parents like you.
That's the worst.
It is.
I would hate when people say that.
It is the worst.
It is kind
like,
of
you're gonna
the
make them
worst.
rebel.
But
so lucky.
it's true. You know,
I think they pictured us sitting around the table.
Right, it's true.
it is true.
But,
Like in ways that they don't think. Like, I think
Yeah.
they don't understand like the kind of lucky that I think. Like, I'm lucky because you guys aren't extremely strict and like. And I don't think
Yeah.
you really have to be, because we don't really do.
Well, Grace, let's see what God's word
Yeah,
say about
like-
your behavior right now.
Or like, yeah, I'll say something like in honesty, and you're like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, start preaching a sermon to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that does not happen. Like, you kind of just let me rant when I need to. And yeah, I think that you guys just being yourselves in and out of the church, both being in the church, made me want to be a part of this community. Even more so now that I've left, I find myself watching the videos that like Cornerstone puts out, and like watching the sermons online and being like, oh, I miss my church. And like, I never had a chance to miss it before, but I like, when I'm at Liberty, I do. Like, I miss the community, and I miss like being as like, I want to be more plugged in because of how plugged in you guys always were. So I think that's for me.
Any other thoughts from you?
I do think you did a good job of like, I never felt like this was something I had to do, whether I wanted to or not. Yeah. And, like, as a kid, obviously, you just go wherever your parents tell you to go. But I reached a certain age where, like, and I was, like, not in open rebellion and not denying my faith and not even necessarily falling away completely, but just not taking it as seriously, like, kind of high school, that era of my life. I still knew how to talk, but I didn't really care as much about walking the walk. And I think if you guys responded to that by, like, dragging me to church every Sunday and making me to go to youth group my senior year and all the things that I really didn't want to do at the time, church would have just grown into something that I would have thought of as a negative completely. Whereas at the time, I think I was just an immature kid who knew the importance of it, but just, I mean, ADHD and just didn't have the capabilities to get over that. But your response could have been something that completely pushed me away forever. But instead, I think I saw, like, genuine concern from not just you guys, but other people in the church, like, genuinely caring. And I could tell that people wanted me involved in here, not just to make the family look good, not just because it's the thing to do, but because they actually cared. And things like that, that's how you get a kid especially to, like, that you can, if they can tell that you're actually listening to them and you actually care about what they're going through mentally, emotionally. And so because of that, things like youth group and other things, I've gotten way more involved and now take it a lot more seriously. And I think a lot of that was seeing your example, but not feeling like feeling it is my own decision. It's my own faith. It's not yours that I feel like it's been imposed on me.
Well, you didn't go away to college, like Grace's experience of missing it. So there's transition there, but it's weird. You're not, and you also were going through a pretty difficult time.
Yeah, I was not exactly happy with myself or my life in general or where it was going. And so, yeah, I was in a very delicate place.
We took more of a hands-off approach, and that was all your mom.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure.
No, she did good. It's
Yeah,
like, just,
very good.
It's going to be okay. Right? Like it says, the proverb, train a child. And you weren't extreme. It's not like you were.
Right. Yeah, there were rules and stuff, but, but
you didn't go to church sometimes, and I was like, it's okay. It's I mean, yeah, there's part of me that goes, is it okay? Because that's what being a parent is.
Right, exactly.
Always. It's okay, is it? And
that's the whole, like, the Holy Spirit does the work, not the parents. And I think never been a parent, but I can see how that would be super difficult to actually, super easy to say, not as easy to actually live.
Yeah.
But it's true. If you let the Holy Spirit do, like, the kid will end up where he's supposed to be or she's supposed to be. At least it worked out in my case. So
yeah, sometimes you need to go a lot further than just skipping church a few weeks.
I mean, yeah, and like,
and that's not easy for a parent to watch full on rebellion. But you never.
But and I think a lot of that rebellion, like a lot of the rebellion, is more internal, where it might have felt more dramatic to me than it did look like to other people around me. Yeah. It changes from person to person. Everyone has seasons like that, I think.
All right, here's a little bit of a question on left field. Based on your upbringing, Christian home, can you date or even marry a non-Christian?
No.
No.
All right. You know the biblical answer, which you better.
No.
But now you're 22, 19, first ever legit boyfriend now.
Yeah.
Right? Go right. Oklahoma.
I know he's gonna be so happy
Is he a
that he
Thunder
got
family?
mentioned. No, he's just
in
living...
Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's not from there.
I know. But so you're obviously in that age. Hopefully not anything too soon, but thinking about marriage, all that. So from a subjective point of view, why is that important?
I just think that you cannot make a relationship work. I mean, at least me, because I have extremely high standards, and I don't know why or how, like, I see a lot of people just like letting their standards go, and I can't for some reason. Like, that is not the way my brain is hardwired. Like, I will not let my standards go. And I think that's been an extremely good thing, but it also has led to me not being in a relationship until a couple months ago because I couldn't date in high school.
I
which
was
is
so
a good
sad
thing.
about that.
I am the biggest supporter of don't date in high school because no one's brains are developed. And even in college, our brains are not developed, but at least they're a little bit more developed than high school. And I think that, like, number one, I was like, of course, he has to be Christian. But I didn't really know what that looked like because I was like, okay, what does that actually mean? But, like, having the same intentionality with keeping God in the center of your relationship is just, like, so important. Like, just constantly bringing up what the Lord wants, what the Lord has for the both of you. I'm not perfect at it. I have just started to navigate it, but dating someone who is on the same page as me and that's the same goal, and honestly dating for the end goal of marriage, because I don't know who can date for just we're gonna break up eventually. Like, that's so weird, like, for me to think about. Like, I don't do that. Like, I don't do casual dating. So like, someone that's like, obviously if it doesn't end up that way, it doesn't end up that way, but the goal is always
to be thinking
about, could I marry this person, and not getting in a relationship if you can't, and just being equally yoked in every aspect. Because I don't know, I always think about my future, and I think I don't want to be taking my kids to church and my husband sitting at home. I don't want to do that. Like, that is just the most heartbreaking thing to me, like, would be to not have a Christian husband. Like, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Like,
and it happens. We have people in our church that they come to Christ afterwards.
Yes,
and
that works.
But why
for
would
some
you
people.
enter that in? On purpose?
Yeah, and the thing about me is I'm not converting anybody. Like, my personality is not like Mom's, where she kind of dragged you to a bunch of stuff. My personality is like, okay, like, it's fine, and like, I don't know. I don't think I could be the one that's like, come on, you have to go to church. Like, I'm not going to be doing any of that. So I just have to be like, okay, like, lay out to me what you believe, and I will decide if I can be in a relationship with you or not. Like,
we will part ways.
I'm serious. Like, I'm dead serious about it.
It's in our current state of our culture, for the most part, there was times in past, not really my past, probably before me, but it's just kind of worsened or heightened. The idea of just kind of having the values of a Christian, but not being a Christian. There are those out there. Yeah. For sure. But a lot less than it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be more like the demands of a value. You might not be an actual believer and really want to go to church, but you're sacrifice for others. It's just hard to find someone who's like that and would be a great self, and again, they're out there, but they're far more likely to be if they're Christian.
Yeah, the culture is definitely not going in that direction of purity. Like, there's a lot of people out there that, like, are just chasing, like lustful relationships. And I think that's just so sad to see our culture go that way. I think it's sad to see, like, friends of mine get into situations, like, where, people's pasts haunt them. Like, people do not have the moral standings that they used to have. I don't know what happened to our culture, but hopefully it starts to swing the other way. But I think being a Christian is, at least it gives you that standard of, like, at least you're trying to
I heard
pursue.
J.D. Greer once said in a sermon, really well, he talked to the people. Instead of talking to Christians saying, you shouldn't be dating an unbeliever, he talked to the unbelievers who might be there. Yeah. And he's like, unless your intention is to become a Christian, why do you want to date someone who constantly wants to change everything about you?
Yeah.
Because it's really what it is. It's not just, obviously we don't want anyone to be an unbeliever, but it's like, why? You're just going to be frustrated because you're going to feel judged all the time. You're going to feel, so you really shouldn't want it either. And if you're an unbeliever and you have no interest in Christ, you should at least try to yoke in a very common moral because a marriage is hard enough when you do have a common moral. You know, now you have right now are like, I don't think I'm ever getting married, but we all know that probably will change. After the podcast and everyone sees what a snack Nathan is.
Yeah, ladies, line up.
But any thoughts
This
on
man
that
is
from
available for you.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I learned a lot from making mistakes, and which seems to be the only way I learn anything anymore. But I mean, I had relationships, whether they were official or not official or whatever, in high school, and most of them with people that, if they were believers, like, you know, I can't, I'm not the Holy Spirit, but like, I'm pretty sure.
Not seeing the
They're
fruit.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I've seen that, and it always ends up like, if it doesn't push the relationship apart, it'll push your relationship with Christ apart. It just will. And especially now, I think as I've matured and become a little bit more secure in myself, and as everyone does when they get older, I have less of that, like, high school, like, you got to get in a relationship, and I have, like, realized there is no chance that I would be happier with anybody who wasn't fully invested in the way I want to live my life than I would be just by myself. I mean, there are things, and I get that I'm very different than a lot of people, so it doesn't necessarily work, but
Amen.
I don't have to struggle. I don't have to struggle that much, like, mentally to convince like, being alone is completely fine with me, so I think I have an advantage in that department. But
I think
absolutely,
that's a good way to be, because you'll wait for the right timing.
Yeah.
I loved being alone too.
Yeah. It's like, don't try to force it.
right.
Because then you're just going to be unhappy.
Exactly. And I've kind of resigned myself. And for a while that it terrified me, like, I gotta find the right person, whatever. But I'm at the point now where I truly trust, like, I think about Paul, like, in the Bible, and how he was single and how he writes about it. And I think, like, if that's God's plan for me, that's okay. And is that likely? Probably not. Most people do end up getting married. But I feel like
be able to play
having,
video games anytime you want.
well, yeah, exactly. See, there you go. I hear all these old guys. I'm like, I can play video games till whatever. But anyway,
Oh my gosh.
but it's more like, yeah, the direction of my life. I mean, if I wanted to dive into a ministry headstrong, or I could do any of that stuff and not feel like I have a family to support or things like that. And so I think God does potentially need people that are single and need people like.
It may not be his plan.
Right. If I needed to pick up and go somewhere.
And if it isn't, you will be content with it.
Exactly. And I think that and it's almost a little bit, I tend to romanticize things in my head, and so I romanticize it a little bit. Like, if that'd be cool someday to go up and be like one of those guys that was just single and in heaven someday. That I wouldn't mind that being my legacy. And so I think when you acknowledge that and accept, no matter what the outcome God has, you're going to be happy, or filled with joy at least, then it makes things way easier, just way easier to let go.
What is something as a church we can stop doing, start doing, or do better to meet your needs as you transition from pastor kids to young adults? As you continue to transition to something church people who are around you could do better, or to stop. Just please stop this. It sounds like, from what you already said, probably not a lot of that, but, or you've already voiced it, but anything specifically because you're older now.
No, I mean, I do encourage people, like, talk to young people, ask them what's going on, pour into their lives. But also be careful, like, remember, these are the most insecure people on the planet, and me being one, a young adult / like late teen. And like when you're talking to them about college or things like that, or their job or their future or literally anything, it's very easy to make comments that you might not think are just subtly like off-putting to people, especially young adults. Remember, it's just like we take things a little bit more to heart maybe than an adult, full-grown adult would, or we just have a different perspective on things. So I think that's true with interacting across the board, but one little comment can have such an impact on a young person compared to an older person who might not be as like developed in that developmental stage. So I think, yeah, pour out as much as you can, but like not, listening is oftentimes the best thing you can do. Not necessarily, like, not everyone needs your advice. Unsolicited advice is usually just a no-go. That would be my baseline recommendation, is don't tell young people what you think they should do. Just listen to them and encourage them, but
ask a lot of questions.
yeah, unless you're their kid or something like
Like
that.
Jeopardy, do it in the form of a question. Do you think that's a great idea for your life?
Right, yeah.
What
But
about you? Any? Oh, sorry, I don't want to.
no, that's fine.
Yeah, I would say just helping. I mean, for someone that's a college student like myself, like I think we're not around a lot during the year, so it's kind of hard to do this, but maybe more with like people that are home like Nathan and like maybe even like people younger than him that are home. Like this is such an interesting transition time in being a part of the church. I was just talking about this with some other people not from our church, but it was like this kid that I'm friends with took a gap year, and he said like 1 second I was with my youth group friends and we were totally normal. Next second I'm not allowed to go to youth group anymore. And all my friends are still there, but I am too old. I outgrew youth group, which is fine. But he kind of felt like an outside, like looking in on all like, oh, they get to do so many fun things. And like, I'm just because I graduated high school and I'm still here, but I can't participate anymore. And I was like having that conversation. I was like, that's an interesting thing, because a lot of people are like, oh, everyone went off to college and they're not here anymore, so we don't have to think about them. But there's a lot that get left behind if they stay home, or even college students when they come home. Like it can be
It's hard. They don't feel connected.
confusing, yeah, to be like, like I'm not able to do any of this other stuff anymore, but there's not really anything for me. And I think our church does a good job of it. I think Josh really does a good job of trying to plug the young adults in. I think there's still work to do.
And is one of the great things is like, as people graduate that knew Josh, like, you know, you knew him for 1 year, but he's, you know, it was a little bit harder for him to connect with college students he didn't know.
Yeah.
He tried, but they're like, we don't know who you are.
Yeah. But like that makes the transition easier if
Yeah.
you knew Josh from youth group, and then like
Yeah.
you feel less intimidated to join a group. I think now like maybe I feel a little intimidated because I don't know I know the kids that are my age that graduated, but maybe like the kids that just graduated this year I'm a little bit more connected with. I think like the kids that are older than me, I'm like, I might know you, but I don't really know you or haven't talked to you in a long time. So I think it was intimidating for me. Like I was like, I don't really know if I want to go to young adult group, because it's not like youth group where I walked in and I was like, hey, everybody. Like, but I think as our church develops and people go through youth group and graduate, like that'll grow more. But yeah, I would say even if you're not, you know, a part of any of that, just really trying to, if you see someone that might have come home from college or might be still in church, not going to college, but you know that they're like graduated high school or in that in-between phase, just talk to them, connect with them, make them feel like you see them and care about them, because a lot of times, I've heard from a lot of people, they can feel kind of left behind. And
yeah, because it's very, with kids, just like with school, it's very programmatic. Like, okay, now you do this and now you do that. And then it's like, in a lot of churches, we're making the attempt, but it is hard when kids are coming and going, or young adults. But it's like, okay, what do I do now? And it's a transition for church or, you know, parents, but it's also a transition for you. It's like, I'm used to just, all right, that's the next thing. But now it's like,
Yeah,
there really isn't one.
now I got to be an adult, but I'm not like 50-year-old dude.
Right.
And I'm 50, by the
Yeah, and
way.
I'm not going to my mom's middle-aged women Bible study, which, no offense to you guys, I hear it's very popular Bible study. It's the very popular filling up Bible study, but my mom was like, you could come to that. I'm like, I don't think my problems line up with their problems. Their problems are probably harder than mine. They're like, work, all this and that. Their kids are the problem, and I'm the kid with the problem. Like,
Right.
like
I don't think
I'm
that
the
would work.
kid that is
They
the
wouldn't wanna-
problem. So
I wouldn't want to say things, probably.
yeah. So it's like, no, I can't really join like a adult small group yet, but I can't go to youth group anymore. So it is weird.
What are ways people, or something that people can specifically pray for you? That was one of the, I think they asked. I can pray for you, but I mean,
I mean, mine will.
I already
and
know everything.
Probably, yeah. Mine will forever be anxiety and just. It just affects so many things for me, and physically, emotionally, spiritually, like in every way. And it's my constant prayer, just like something I wish God would just take away, and he never does. So for whatever reason, it's meant to be. But yeah, just that just dealing with day-to-day anxiety is my number one struggle.
I would say just life changes. Like, I feel like I have kind of a lot going on that is new to me. College, new college atmosphere. Yeah, like just navigating my relationships. A lot of them have taken new turns or new chapters that are going to be difficult to navigate. But yeah, just continue to pray for me to be able to, just that God would continue to work in my life. I think he definitely has worked a lot in my life this past year for a positive change. A lot of positives, but a lot of new things that, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with my life. And I'm in that, kind of period of time where everything is a little confusing and new. So just continued prayers for me as I navigate all that. Yeah.
All right. Well, even though this show's called, a podcast called Faith in the Struggle, I think I wanted to, and we've sort of said this, but I think one of the biggest reasons that hasn't been a huge struggle is because of our church, and you guys have mentioned that several times, I think, in different ways. And I would reiterate that and the same goes for Mom too. I've always said it was a little bit easier for her because she wasn't the pastor's wife when I became the pastor. Like, we already had friends because we were just attending here, and then all of a sudden I was pastor. Mom wasn't like, big deal. I'm not like, great, the church is paying you. You don't got to drive all the way to Bentley. That's all that's changed, And there's some adjustment to understanding. No, more than that has changed. But she had her friends, and we just. But for you guys, we're born into it, and the church has never had that. A lot of the questions were repetitive of, hi, did you ever feel higher standards needed to be set, like because of being a pastor kid and people judging you or anything like that? And that does happen places, but praise God for our church, even those that, again, may have left and thought we should have went in a different direction. They were always very good to you guys.
Yeah.
And I've always been very thankful, because if they weren't, we might have had to throw down, and we didn't need that. But also for you, you made it easy too. You weren't like the kid. Neither one of you were the kid that was like, oh, I got that kid. They were always happy. Oh, good, I got, speaking of Hava, Brian's always just like, oh, thank God I had Nathan. Because some of those years, when he had you, there was other good kids.
Yeah.
But
He had the girls.
Not bad
he
kids.
Wanted, he wanted to have the girls too because
my group was just boys.
It was all boys, and they were good kids.
sometimes
They just didn't want to talk
they
about
didn't
anything
want to
serious.
share their feelings.
And you
like
didn't
the
necessarily
girls.
want to either, but you know how to do it.
I wanted to help Brian get through this.
You got to get him through this.
And now I'm a youth leader, so I
understand.
have the same. I have kids like that too. Then I'm like, oh, if they're not there, it's like.
Yeah.
But so I get it.
And it's and it's a commendable to you guys too. You know nothing else. You know a little bit more now that you're at liberty. You go to other churches, but like literally having the guy who preaches almost, it's a little bit different now, most Sundays, but back when then I was like, the only time I didn't preach is on vacation, you were with me. So you very rarely heard anybody except for a guest or whatever. And that's fine, but it's like also like I think there's something kind of cool to be able to just say, sort of put the pastor a little bit on a pedestal. Not like up there, but just like, I don't really want to know his faults because I want to be able to look up to somebody, and you never really had that. I guess.
I can see that.
Nope.
I've never exactly been someone who hides, so you get what you get, right? And like you said, your mom's even more so like that. So, but I think it's commendable that you guys have been able to. Maybe that's why you both have anxiety, but
Well,
sorry about that if that's the case.
who knows?
But so anyway, appreciate you coming on and being willing to do this again. The pastor making his kids come on his podcast. I didn't make you. I asked you.
Yeah.
Twisted your arm a little bit.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, hopefully everyone heard this and can be praying for you, and we'll ask you if you remember their name.
Oh, don't do that.
All right.
All right.
We out. Thanks, guys. And cut.